not a cockpit recording, a witness statement from 25 centuries ago. Their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. As for their rings were full of eyes round about. And when they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of great waters. That isn't modern jargon. That's Ezekiel grappling for words that can hold geometry, radiance, and roar. Whatever you believe about what he saw, the language is precise, stubborn, unforgettable. Here's how we're going to do this: simple, honest, slow enough to think. First, we read the sources line by line. No borrowed legends, no aftermarket details. 2 questions guide us. What does the text actually say, and how should we interpret it today? We'll work with 3 live frames. Divine, the language of encounter with the transcendent glory. Angels, revelation, the machinery as symbol, not metal. Nature, comets, bolides, rare atmospheric optics. Sonic booms, ball lightning plus human psychology. Altered states, dream visions, ritual ecstasy. Culture shaping awe into images people understand. Visitors, pre-technological witnesses reaching for metaphors to name technology. Radiant vehicles, deafening arrivals, beings who descend, instruct, and depart. All the way through, we separate quotation from interpretation. Where the line is thin, we say so. Where patterns repeat, we mark them and move on. At the end, you choose divine, nature, or visitors, and why. Now, let me introduce myself. I am a minister and a Bible teacher living here in Israel. Please excuse me if there are any mistakes in my English. It is my joy to unlock the Word of God so that you can understand it better. So please subscribe so you get notified whenever I upload a new video every week. Case 1. Ezekiel, wheels within wheels. A storm from the north. A great cloud. A brightness around it, and something like glowing metal. That's the text. 4 living beings move as one. Beside each Aphon, a wheel. Inside each galgal, another wheel intersecting it. The rims are high and awesome, studded with eyes. Wherever the spirit would go, they went. And the sound of their wings was like the roar of many waters. That's the text. What do we do with it? The prophet has no word for gyroscope, no blueprint for bearings or rings. He reaches for images, he knows eyes for studs, thunder for propulsion, radiance for heat and shock. It reads like geometry witnessed by a poet. Does that make it technology? Not necessarily. It could be the language of glory-throne imagery, liturgical vision, or an extreme atmospheric event refracted through temple symbolism. But the motifs are stubborn: light, raw, metallic sheen, synchronized motion. We'll keep the line between quotation and theory yet, admit this. Ezekiel describes a machine-like choreography with the precision of someone who watched, not heard a rumor. Case 2. The Vedas and the Mahābhārata, vimanas and blazing weapons. The epics speak in the register of myth, but they keep returning to flight. Chariots that rise at will. Palaces that move through the sky. A king's craft that travels wherever the mind goes. That's the text. Warriors call down, Astra invoked, weapons blinding, world shaking, sometimes described as suns bursting, winds scorching, the earth trembling. That's the text. Now, honesty. An epic is poetry, not a lablog. Hyperbole is part of its power. Yet across thousands of verses, 2 threads hold: mobility in the air as a given for the gods and their chosen, radiance and noise as signatures of force. If you hear technology in it, you'll name engines, guidance, ordnance. If you hear theology, you'll name sovereignty, splendor, cosmic order. If you hear nature, you'll see comets, bolides, shockwaves, and a human mind translating terror into story. We aren't here to import modern myths back into ancient pages. We are here to notice how consistently those pages stage flight, light, and sound as acts of power. Case 3. 1 Enoch, the Watchers. They descend to Mount Hermon and bind themselves by oath, not to worship but to teach, metalwork and weapons, adornments and the dark arts of seduction, divination, stars, roots, enchantments. The knowledge accelerates violence. Desire outruns wisdom. The earth is said to cry out, judgment follows. That's the arc. The text gives us arrival instruction. Consequence. This isn't canon for most traditions. It survives whole in the Ethiopian church and echoes in fragments elsewhere. But its thesis is razor clear. Knowledge out of season corrupts. Read it one way, and it's a moral tale about technology without ethics. Read it another, and it's contact law transmission from above that changes a civilization too fast. Or read it as cultural memory of real human teachers, outsiders whose metallurgy and cosmetics flipped social structures overnight. However you pass the agents, the pattern stands: descent, disclosure, disruption. Case for Sumer and Akkad. Before we project, we read. In the tablets, Anona or Anunnaki names a rank of God's offspring of sky, An and earth Ki. They sit in assembly, decree destinies, ratify kingship. In some later hymns, they appear as underworld powers judges below. Titles, jurisdictions, rituals, theology, not travelogue. That's the text. So why are they here? Because the modern imagination keeps recasting them as visitors. The sources won't carry that weight by themselves. What they will carry is a worldview. Order comes from the sky. Sovereignty is conferred. Cities rise when heaven grants the right. Kingship descends, not invents itself. If you're listening for contact, that verb will ring. If you're listening for religion, it says the same thing without spacecraft. And yet, the Sumerian habit of treating the divine council like a court of officials asked, ranked convendade, feels strikingly administrative, almost technical. No sources here in the lines. But the logic of grant, descend, authorize is unmistakable. Case 5, the Popol Vuh, heart of sky. In the beginning, there was only the sky and the calm sea. The makers speak, and the world takes form. The voice is the instrument. Naming summons mountains, valleys, life. When the first humans' figures of wood fail to remember their makers, the command comes again from above, and the world answers with flood, with biting animals, with a sky that turns against its own creatures. Later, people are made from maize and given understanding. That's the text. What holds here is the primacy of sound creation as speech, judgment as word, warning as voice from the unseen. Read it theologically, and you hear a universe keyed to obedience and memory. Read it psychologically, and you hear the oldest human experience of storms and silence translated into agency. Read it as contact, and heart of sky becomes the name for a presence that instructs and intervenes. Repeatedly, until a species finally understands. However you lean, the motif is fixed. Authority descends as voice, and worlds change when it speaks. Case 6, Rome, prodigies and ships in the sky. Roman annalists keep ledgers of the strange before wars, during plagues, at moments of political fracture. The record notes prodigies, statues that sweat, phantom armies in the clouds, shields that gleam overhead, and an entry that simply says, the appearance of ships in the sky. That's the text. It doesn't preach, it tallies. The response is ritual. Consult the Sibylline books, sacrifice, reset the pact with the gods. Read it as religion, and its civic anxiety given order, omens logged, rites performed, the state made whole. Read it as nature, and you see atmospheric optics, auroras, bolides, then the human need to domesticate terror with procedure. Read it as contact, and those ships read like the best word available to name a form and motion that didn't belong to storm or star. The power of the entry is its dryness. No sermon, no allegory, just a line that lands and stays. Case 7, China, dragons of fire and broom stars. Across dynasties, the chronicles watch the sky with discipline. They name guest stars that appear where no star should, and broom stars that sweep the heavens with luminous tails. They speak of fiery dragons, of nights bright as day, of celestial events arriving before famine, rebellion, or the fall of a court. Directions, durations, colors, observations first, meanings second. That's the text. Take the natural reading, and you have comets and novae, auroras and meteors documented with a rigor that still serves astronomy. Take the religious reading, and the mandate of heaven trembles whenever the sky strays from its habits. Take the contact reading, and the dragon becomes the cultural skin for a radiant, moving presence that announces itself and then is gone. Whatever you choose, to facts hold. The watchers are systematic, and the sky is not neutral in their history. It speaks, it warns, it marks turning points. The matrix of motifs. Let's lay out a simple matrix: light, sound, geometry, descent, voice, or instruction, warning, and consequence, and walk the 7 cases through it. Ezekiel first. Light. Yes, radiance like glowing metal. Sound. Yes, the roar of many waters. geometry, emphatically, wheels within wheels, rims full of eyes. Descent, the vision comes down to him and rises at will. Voice, central, the commission that follows. Warning, not the focus. Consequence, a prophet is sent. A life is redirected. The Vedas, light blazing, sound, thunderous, world-shaking. Geometry, chariots and palaces, forms we'd call vehicles. Descent, gods arrive and depart. Voice or instruction, ritual and cosmic order are taught. Warning, often in the language of vows and taboos. Consequence, devastation when weapons are invoked. Restoration when vows hold. One Enoch light, present, though not the headline. Sound less emphasized. Geometry, no. Descent, it is the plot watchers come down. Voice instruction, the theme metals, adornment, enchantments, stars. Warning, repeated and ignored. Consequence, corruption and judgment. The earth cries out. Sumer, light and sound, secondary. Geometry, no. Descent, kingship descends. Authority is conferred from the sky. Voice, instruction, yes. Decrees, destinies, the arts of civilization under divine patronage. Warning, rare. Consequence, order, cities chartered, rulers legitimated. The Popol Vuh, light, creation by word more than by flame. Sound, primary speech makes worlds. Geometry, none. Descent, authority from heart of sky, again and again. Voice instruction, yes, remember your makers. Warning, explicit when memory fails. Consequence, flood, biting creatures, and a second making from maize. Rome's prodigies, light, shields gleaming, fires in the sky. Sound, sometimes, often, the record is dry. Geometry, ships as the closest forms with motion. Descent, appearances overhead tied to earthly crisis. Warning, that's the category omens, before upheaval. Consequence, ritual, responsant, war or plague follows. China's chronicles, light, abundant. Guest stars, broom stars, nights, bright as day. Sound, seldom. Geometry, tales, trails, forms that persist and move. Descent, sudden arrivals in fixed constellations. Voice instruction, not as speech, but as calendrical meaning. Warning, yes, omens, tied to mandate and dynasty. Consequence, recorded turbulence, famine, rebellion, transfers of power. Now, step back. The columns aren't equal. Ezekiel spikes geometry and sound. The epics spike light and force. Enoch spikes descent and instruction. Sumer spikes authority that descends. The Popol Vuh spikes voice and consequence. Rome spikes warning. China spikes pattern and chronology. So what does a matrix like this do? It doesn't prove visitors, and it doesn't disprove the divine. It does one honest thing. It shows how often light, sound, descent, instruction, warning, and consequence travel together in the oldest stories people bothered to write down. The more overlaps, the less we can wave them off as random, the more we must admit they're human universals. The deep grammar of awe. Either way, the pattern is there, and patterns, at minimum, deserve questions. Now let's see three explanations, held side by side, without zealotry, divine and mystical. Start with the claim that texts make about themselves. They speak the language of encounter with the holy, the unseen, the more than human. Ezekiel's vision reads like throne imagery. The epics crown sovereignty with splendor. The Popol Vuh names creation by voice. In this reading, light, sound, descent, and command are not hardware but holiness theophany, rendered in human words. The geometry is symbol, the roar is glory. The wheels are a way to say, structure within the storm of God. Take this view seriously, and the pattern is not about visitors at all. It's about a cosmos where meaning descends and commissions the living. Natural phenomena plus psychology. Now, hold a second lens. The sky throws real fire. Comets with sweeping tails, superbolids that boom like artillery and turn night into noon, auroras that curtain the horizon. Ball lightning, rare but terrifying. Add human factors. Fasting, vigil, grief, trance, dream visions, so vivid they stamp themselves as memory. Entheogens, in ritual contexts. Culture shaping raw awe into familiar images. Chariot, dragon, throne. Scribes smooth the edges. Analysts keep ledgers of omens. In this reading, the matrix of motifs is what happens when high-energy sky events meet a nervous system designed to find agency and a society trained to extract meaning. The visitors, then the third possibility, pre-technological people reaching for metaphors to name technology. Wheels within, wheels concentric rings that pivot, eyes along the rim's ports, rivets, sensors, chariots that lift and maneuver vehicles with intent. Ships in the sky, the most honest term an observer could choose. On this view, descent plus instruction looks less like allegory and more like transmission. Not proof, but a live hypothesis that tries to explain why light, sound, geometry, descent, voice, warning, and consequence travel together so often across cultures that never met. Mini mythbust, text versus modern add-ons. Ezekiel never says spaceship. He names wheels, rims, eyes, raw, radiance, vision, language, not metallurgy diagrams. The Vedas and the Mahābhārata speak of flight and blazing weapons, yes. The detailed blueprints, sometimes quoted online, come from much later texts and modern retellings, not the core epics. One Enoch calls the descent watchers and the teachings metalwork, adornment, enchantments, astronomy. It doesn't mention lasers or engines. The danger is knowledge out of season. Anunnaki in Sumerian sources names ranks of gods and a divine council. Visitors are a modern projection. The tablets themselves anchor the word in theology and kingship. Roman annals really do record prodigies and even ships in the sky, but as brief entries, not eyewitness dossiers. The power is in the dryness, not in details we wish were there. Chinese chroniclers are superb astronomy wrapped in omen logic. Guest stars and broom stars are comets, and novae in technical pre-modern language. Turning dragons into vehicles is our move, not theirs. The Popol Vuh's heart of sky is a creator voice, not a disembodied radio. Creation and judgment arrive as speech, not as craft. We keep these distinctions because honesty is the only way the discussion stays worth having. Hold all three explanations in view. Let the texts say what they say. Where the pattern is strong, note it. Where the line is thin, say so. Curiosity is allowed. Certainty is optional. Fateful warnings across the sources, a simple arc repeats. A voice instructs, forbids, or foretells, then something breaks. Ezekiel hears it first as obligation. Warn them, whether they listen or not. If you do not speak, the guilt is yours. He speaks. History answers with siege, exile, and a nation remade in the furnace of loss. Command, refusal, consequence. A pattern is stark. In the epics, vows are warnings with teeth. Do not unleash this weapon except as a last resort. Break the oath, and the field is left empty of life. Keep it, and order holds. The cosmos of the Vedas runs on restraint. When restraint fails, radiance becomes ruin. Enoch's story puts the warning in the mouth of a messenger, announced judgment to those who descended and taught what should not yet be known. The sequence is precise descent, disclosure, corruption, flood. Knowledge without timing is named as violence. The earth itself is said to cry out. In the Popol Vuh, the warning is memory. Remember your makers. The wooden people do not, and the world answers with flood, with creatures that turn against their makers, with a second making from maize. Speech creates, speech judges. Forgetting is not neutral, it triggers collapse. Rome keeps its cautions in ledgers. Prodigies appear. The Sibylline books are consulted. Rites are performed to reset the pact. When the city moves slowly or the rites fail, the entries that follow are blunt. Plague, defeat, fire. No sermon, just the civic record that omens ignored are costs paid later. China's chronicles frame warnings as sky notes to a throne. Guest stars, broom stars, nights bright as day. Memorials urge virtue, restraint, relief for the hungry. Soon after, the pages turn to famine, rebellion, transfers of mandate, observation, admonition, outcome written with the calm of astronomers and the caution of statesmen. Mesopotamia names its warnings as decrees. Order descends, fates are allotted, kingship is granted and can be taken away. When rulers neglect what the gods have fixed, cities fall out of rhythm, and kingship lifts. That is the verb the myths protect. Thread them together, and the motif is not subtle. Instruction precedes disaster. Prohibition anticipates penalty. Prophecy tracks a timeline that ends in upheaval when the first lines are crossed. So bring it home. If the texts are warnings, what are we missing today? We have satellites, radars, seismographs, models that see farther than any priest ever could. But we also have the old human reflex to hear, to hesitate, to rationalize, to move on. If the sky, the data, or the conscience is speaking, what patterns are we dismissing as noise? And what breaks if we keep doing it? We've read the lines, not the legends. We've held 3 lenses without forcing a verdict. Now, it's your turn. Drop a comment and cast a vote. Divine nature, or visitors. And tell us why. One sentence is enough. What tipped you? The geometry, the warnings, the way descent and instruction travel together. If this made you think, send it to a friend who loves cosmic mysteries. Let them weigh the pattern for themselves.